Hey guys, what's up? How's it going? Robin here. Welcome to today's video. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my top #1 Vanguard ETF to buy right now for passive investing. VTI is one of the most popular Vanguard-based ETFs, and for a very good reason. And this is primarily because of the fact that one share of VTI will offer you a wide variety exposure to the entire US stock market. VTI offers exposure to some of the largest and best known companies in the US, such as Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, as well as some smaller, more up and coming companies as well. And the best thing about ETFs in general is that if you just buy even one share of an ETF, you are diversifying yourself across whatever that ETF might be. So for example, when it comes with VTI, because it is an ETF that's the total US stock market index, if you just buy one share of VTI, you are getting exposure to all kinds of different US stocks. And this is a great way to add diversification into your portfolio. And as the US stock market traditionally does go up over time, you are guaranteed that your stocks will increase in time over time as well. At the time of recording this video, one share of VTI will buy you over 3,531 different stocks. And the fund itself has over 149 billion assets under management. VTI is one of the biggest, baddest, and best performing US ETFs that you can buy right now. At the time of recording this video, VTI currently trades at $164 US per share. Now, before we go any further into the video, it's very important to mention that one of the most important things that you need to look into when you pick an ETF for yourself, when you pick any ETF, is to look at the actual holdings of the ETF itself. And when it comes to VTI, they truly do have some of the best companies inside of it. So let's take a quick peek at VTI and let's see what kind of companies are in the holdings of VTI. Alright guys, so I'm just on the Vanguard website for VTI. If you go into Google and you type in Vanguard VTI ETF, it should take you to a page like this. And what you guys can do is you can see the different holdings that are actually in VTI itself. And as we can see, once again, there's 3,501 holdings. But keep in mind that may sound like a lot of stocks, but a lot of these bigger stocks at the top actually have more weighted in the holdings. And we'll go over that in just a second. But here's a big list of all the different companies that are being held currently in VTI. So as we can see, this truly does feature some of the best and the biggest companies in the US. We have companies like Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google, Johnson & Johnson, Berkshire, Visa, Procter & Gamble, Home Depot, MasterCard, and you can see the list just really goes on. Nvidia, AT&T, Adobe, PayPal, all these are really big companies that you're probably, you don't even have to be an investor to actually know these companies because they're just big, well-known companies that make up the entire US stock market. And VTI really does a good job of holding the best ones, and over time these ones have been proven to actually increase in value. So as you guys can see, if you buy shares of VTI, you're buying into good solid companies, which is why I think it really makes VTI such a good ETF to buy right now. If we go over to this other page, we can also see the different weighted holdings of the different stocks. So like I said, in the other one we had 3,501 holdings, but in reality 5% of those like the Microsoft Corp right here, it actually accounts for 5% of that. So you'll see that the bigger corporations at the top have more holdings in the portfolio, and you'll get less of the smaller ones. And this just makes sense because they want to make it so that the bigger companies earn you more as time goes on because they're more likely to grow, right? So the biggest companies with the most weighted percentage inside VTI are Microsoft Corporation, Apple, Amazon, Google, Alphabet and Corp is actually Google, Facebook, Johnson & Johnson, Berkshire, Visa, Procter & Gamble, and then United Health Group. And then the other ones kind of go less as we go on. And the top 10 holdings account for 23% of the actual total net assets. So these top 10 companies comprise over about 1/4 of the entire ETF. So as we just seen there, VTI really truly does hold some of the best companies in the US stock market. Now, it's also really important to look at sector allocation inside an ETF as well. And when it comes to VTI, it's pretty diversified across the board, which is always a good thing. The most weighted sector of VTI is technology, and this makes quite a bit of sense because if you look at some of the biggest companies in the US, they generally speaking are a lot of big tech companies. And once again, if we go back to the Vanguard website, we can actually see the portfolio composition by sector diversification here of VTI. So this is the actual VTI total stock market ETF as of right now. And this is the CRSB US Total Stock Market Index benchmark. So we can see here that VTI has a very low amount in basic materials, which is about 2% of the portfolio. Coming up here with 8% is consumer goods, and then we get a little bit more in consumer services, same with financials, healthcare, industrials. Oil and gas is pretty low here, and this is because the US doesn't do much oil and gas in comparison to countries like Canada. We actually have a lot of oil and gas, but what they do have the vast majority is in terms of technology. We can see here that the weighting to this portfolio is 26.4% technology, and once again, this is just because technology really is booming right now. You look at companies and stocks like Microsoft and Apple and Google and stuff like that. Those are all big, even Facebook. Those are all big tech-based companies, so that's why that's so high. And next up, we have telecommunications at 1.8%, and then utilities at 3% here. So you can see that once again, technology is the biggest sector that VTI focuses on, but it's also important to note that it also has a lot of different other ones as well. We have some consumer goods, we have some consumer services, some finances, some healthcare, some industrials. So it's a little bit of everything. Like, it's not just all technology, but this definitely is the biggest sector. Now, one really important thing I want to kind of point out right now in this video is because VTI is so heavily focused in the US stock market index, it's important to kind of take note that VTI really truly does experience the big highs, but that also comes with the big lows that VTI experiences as well. And depending how you look at it, this is both a good and a bad thing. The good thing about this is that over time, this means that, and this has been proven in the past as well, is that VTI and US stocks will perform really well, and they will grow to new highs all the time. But the problem is, when the stock market is having a bit of a hard time, you're also going to experience those lows, even if they are just temporary. And remember, when it comes to passive investing with ETFs, the most important thing to focus on is what's going to happen in the long term. It doesn't really matter so much what happens in the short term. In fact, you can look at the short term as an opportunity to buy more stocks and get more earnings in the future. The most important thing to remember is what happens in the long run. And VTI has shown to do very well in the long run and perform very, very well as an overall ETF. So once again, if we head on back over to the VTI Vanguard website, we can see some information about the earnings of VTI over the past couple years. And this is where we're going to see how well VTI has performed over the past little while. So we can see over the past year, VTI is currently sitting at a 6.4% up. Over the course of 3 years, it's sitting at 33%. Over the course of 5 years, it's sitting at 61%. Over the course of 10 years, VTI is sitting at a 262% increase, and since inception in total, 2001, this fund is sitting at 277%. This means that if you started investing in 2001, your money would have grown to this date by 277%. You want to look at the yearly returns. Here they are here at the bottom here, and once again, this is the total return on the right side here, and this is the year on the left side. So we can see in 2019, total return of VTI was 30%. That is a huge gain for 1 year. In 2018, negative 5%. So once again, when the stock market doesn't do that well, you will get those losses in a ETF like VTI, and this kind of just comes with US stocks. But once again, in 2017, total return of 21%. In 2016, 12%. 2015 wasn't that great of a year with 0%. But you can see once again that every time there's a low year, you generally speaking get high years. And we've been on quite a bit of high years over the past little while. In fact, the lowest performing year we can see here to date of VTI was back in 2018 when the stock market crash happened then. But ever since then, VTI has performed extremely well, and in some years crazy well, like hitting 33% gains, and that's just how well VTI has performed over the past couple years. At an annual return basis, we can see here this chart on the left will give us an idea that over the past 3 years, VTI would have gave you a 10% gain. Over the past 5 years, once again, you would have got a 10% gain. Over the last 10 years, you would have got a 13% gain annually. And since inception, if you invest in VTI, and this currently includes the big dip that happened in 2020, you would have gotten an annual return of 7.21%, which is pretty solid. Now, this talks about the returns of VTI, but let's spend a little bit of time talking about fees because fees are important to address when it comes to ETFs. The annual expense fee of VTF right now at the time of doing this video is a ridiculously low 0.03%. And that's one of the best things about a lot of Vanguard's funds is they have some of the cheapest fees. And this is important because over time, as you put more money into your ETFs, as you put more money into your stocks, your money will grow and those fees really do add up at the end of the day. And this is a really nice thing about Vanguard ETFs, specifically VTI, is that in comparison to some other funds, you could be looking at like 0.3 or 0.5% or even all the way up to 0.92%, which is such a big difference. And VTI is sitting at 0.03%, so you really save a lot of money on fees. And here's a cool little chart here that they did for us that shows us if you invested $10,000, just $10,000 over the course of 10 years, you save $2,019 with this ETF, with VTI, with their low fee. And if you look at a fund that has about 0.92%, you'd be paying about $2,000 in fees. So when it comes to investing over long periods of time with a large amount of monies, fees really do make a big difference. And VTI has one of the best fees for an ETF out there. Lastly, it's important to talk about the dividend yield of VTI. Now, VTI doesn't have one of the biggest dividend yields out there, but it's not also a super small dividend yield. It's kind of like on the low to medium size when it comes to dividend yields. At the time of recording this video, VTI has a dividend yield of around 2.10%, and its dividends are paid out on a quarterly basis. So the bulk of the earnings you're going to be getting from VTI will come from stock appreciation and those stocks growing over time with a little bit of dividend yield on the side. Now, one also important thing to point out about VTI is that it truly is one of the most popular US or even just ETFs in general. It has a super high daily trade volume. So I've talked a lot about VTI in this video and how much is a good ETF, but I also wanted to show you guys that I myself actually hold VTI. I hold it in my main stock portfolio on Wealthsimple. So let's jump over into my account. We'll do a quick little recap of how VTI has been performing for me, and then we'll jump out and I'll let you guys know my conclusions about the VTI ETF. So I'm inside my Wealthsimple Invest account here, which is a Canadian robo-advisor that I basically use to invest the bulk of my portfolio. And you guys can see here that Wealthsimple adds about 23%-ish of VTI, the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF here. And I have about $11,000 of this fund here, which adds up being about 50 shares at the end of the day. And current performance is about 8.8%. And you can see that this Vanguard ETF has vastly performed as of right now on this current date. A lot more than all these other funds that I have here inside this portfolio. And this is because US stocks right now are fast performing the market, and they generally tend to do so. But keep in mind, since the economy is starting to come up in other countries, some of these other stocks, like the foreign stocks and the Canadian stocks, are starting to kind of creep up a little bit. So we should see them rise over the next little while. But right now, VTI is still outperforming the vast majority of other ETFs in my portfolio. And keep in mind, I've had this fund since I started it in around March 2019. So this is about a year and a half of owning VTF here and buying it on a regular basis. And we're currently sitting at about 8% after the stock market crash. So overall, I think VTI is one of the best ETFs to get out there. It's a great US stock fund. It's a great ETF to buy if you're just getting started out. And the earnings and returns over the course of time have just been pretty solid that you can't really go wrong with it. And if you slap on that super low expense ratio that VTI has, I don't think you can really go wrong with VTI. Now, I wouldn't buy the entirety of my portfolio in US stocks or spend all my money on VTI, but I definitely think it deserves a good chunk in your portfolio. And if you do invest in VTI, I think going into the future, you will do pretty well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you guys want more stock investing and personal finance type videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Take care and have yourself an amazing day.